Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Call. Brad Harding had built his life on certainty. At 42, he turned a failing architectural firm into one of Denver's most respected design houses. He solved problems with blueprints and calculations, not emotions, which is why the phone call at 2:17 a.m. hit him like a wrecking ball. Mr. Harding? The woman's voice was professional but strained. This is Denver International Airport security. We have a situation. Brad sat up, his wife Amelia stirring beside him. What kind of situation? Your daughter landed 6 hours ago. Flight 2847 from Sacramento. No one came to pick her up. She's been waiting in the terminal. And she's upset, sir. Brad's jaw tightened. I don't have a daughter. There was a pause. When the woman spoke again, her voice dropped. Sir, she has documentation. Birth certificate, photos, school records. She's 17. Just, please come. This is complicated. Brad looked at his phone screen. Denver International Security Office. Legitimate. He glanced at Amelia, her honey blonde hair spread across the pillow, eyes still closed. 20 years of marriage. One miscarriage early on, then the acceptance that children weren't in their cards. They made peace with it. I'll be there in 40 minutes. He dressed in the dark. Jeans, a black sweater, his leather jacket. Amelia's breathing never changed. For some reason, Brad didn't wake her. An instinct, perhaps. Something in that security officer's voice. The drive through empty Denver streets gave him time to think. A scam, obviously. Someone found his information online, invented a daughter, was trying to extort money. He'd handled worse. Last year, a contractor had tried to blackmail him over allegedly faulty materials. Brad had buried him in evidence and countersuit. This would be similar. The airport's fluorescent lights hurt his eyes. He found a security office tucked behind the baggage claim, showed his ID, and followed an officer named Patterson through a maze of corridors. She's in waiting room 3, Patterson said. Been cooperative. Scared, mostly. She showed us everything. Birth certificate says she was born in Sacramento, August 2008. Mother's name is listed as Shelley Mahoney. Father's name. He paused. Bradley Harding. Brad stopped walking. That's impossible. I've never been to Sacramento. Never met anyone named Shelley Mahoney. Patterson opened a door. Maybe you can explain that to her. The girl sat in a plastic chair, clutching a backpack covered in band patches. Dark curly hair, olive skin, defiant brown eyes that reminded Brad uncomfortably of someone. She wore ripped jeans and an oversized flannel shirt. 17, the officer had said, but she looked younger in the harsh lighting. When she saw Brad, her expression crumbled. Dad, Brad held up a hand. I'm not your father. I don't know what you've been told, but Mom said you deny it. Valeria, the name on her airport tag, pulled papers from her backpack with shaking hands. She said you disappeared before I was born, that you were married and didn't want complications. The birth certificate looked official. Brad scanned it quickly. Father, Bradley Michael Harding. Mother, Shelley and Mahoney. Date of birth, August 14th, 2008. His stomach twisted. August 2008. He and Amelia had been going through a rough patch. She traveled frequently for her interior design business. He'd been working 70-hour weeks. But Sacramento? Never. Who sent you here? Brad asked. Mom died 3 weeks ago. Valeria's voice cracked. Cancer. I've been staying with her friend, but she can't keep me. Mom's last words were to find you. She gave me your name, your city, everything. Patterson coughed. There's more, Mr. Harding. Photos. Valeria spread them on the table. Brad's breath caught. There he was, younger, thinner, standing outside what looked like a Sacramento hotel. Beside him, a woman with Valeria's same dark curls and olive skin. His arm was around her waist. They were laughing. Except Brad had never been to Sacramento. Never met this woman. Never took this photo. This is fake, he said flatly. Photoshopped. Mom kept them in a box my whole life, Valeria whispered. She told me stories. How you met at a conference. How you came to Sacramento 3 times. How you promised to leave your wife, but never did. Brad mind raced. Conference. Amelia had attended several design conferences in 2007 to 2008. Sacramento was a common location. But why would someone create an elaborate lie 17 years later? Unless, I need to make a call, Brad said. Patterson, can I speak with you outside? In the hallway, Brad kept his voice low. This is a setup. Someone trying to extort money or destroy my reputation. That girl might believe the story, but those documents are fabricated. Patterson nodded slowly. I believe you. But Mr. Harding, she's a minor with nowhere to go. CPS gets involved tomorrow morning. If she's lying, we'll figure it out. If she's being manipulated. He trailed off. Can you hold her here overnight? I need to verify some things. We can give you until 8 a.m. After that, she's going into the system unless you claim responsibility or we find other family. Brad returned to the waiting room. Valeria looked up hopefully. I'm going to help you, Brad said carefully. But I need you to understand, I'm not your father. Someone has lied to you or your mother. We're going to figure out who and why. You look exactly like the photos, Valeria said quietly. Photos can be manipulated. Mom wouldn't lie to me. Maybe your mother was lied to as well. Brad took photos of all the documents with his phone, promised to return by morning, and drove home as dawn broke over the Rockies. His mind churned through possibilities. A scam. Had to be. But who knew enough about his life to fabricate this? Who had access to photos of him from 17 years ago? He walked into his house at 6:42 a.m. Amelia was making coffee, already dressed in her usual elegant style, cream silk blouse, tailored black pants. She smiled when she saw him. Early meeting? Something like that. Brad set his keys on the counter. Do you remember those conferences in Sacramento? 2007, 2008. Her hand paused on the coffee pot. Just for a moment. Which ones? The design expos. You went to several. Oh, those. She poured his coffee. Yes, boring as hell. What? Just try to remember a client from back then. Brad sipped the coffee, watching her face. Amelia had always been good at keeping secrets. Surprise parties, business deals, her feelings. But this morning, something flickered in her eyes. Something that looked like fear. Chapter 2. Cracks in the foundation. Brad didn't go to his office. Instead, he drove to a 24-hour diner on Colfax and called Hoyt Thomas, his oldest friend from college. Hoyt had become a criminal defense attorney, known for his aggressive tactics and complete discretion. You're buying breakfast, Hoyt said 40 minutes later, sliding into the booth. He was a mountain of a man, 6'4", with a linebacker's build that he maintained despite being 43. This better be good. I had a paralegal in my bed. Brad slid his phone across the table, showing the photos of the documents. Someone's claiming I fathered a child 17 years ago. Girl showed up at the airport last night with a complete backstory. Hoyt scrolled through the images, his expression hardening. Birth certificate looks official. Photos are decent quality. Who's the mother? Dead, apparently. Woman named Shelley Mahoney. I've never heard of her. Shelley Mahoney. Hoyt pulled out his own phone, fingers flying. Give me a minute. While Hoyt searched, Brad stared at his cold eggs. The problem wasn't just the false claim. It was Amelia's reaction this morning. That tiny hesitation. 20 years of marriage, and he knew her tells. Found something, Hoyt muttered. Shelley and Mahoney. Died 3 weeks ago in Sacramento. Age 43. Graphic designer. Before that, he looked up. She worked for Barrett and Simmons Design Group. Brad's blood went cold. That's where Amelia worked before we got married. They overlapped for 6 months in 2007. Hoyt set down his phone. Brad, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need a straight answer. Is there any possibility? No, I've never cheated on Amelia. Never even came close. Then someone's running a long game. Hoyt leaned back. Question is, what's the end game? Paternity fraud, blackmail, inheritance claim, or destroy my marriage? Brad said quietly. Hoyt's eyes narrowed. You think Amelia's involved? I think she knows something she's not telling me. They spent the next hour planning. Hoyt would hire a private investigator, someone discreet and thorough. Brad would get a DNA test, though they both knew it would come back negative. Most importantly, Brad would act normal. If this was a trap, he wouldn't spring it by panicking. At 8 a.m., Brad returned to the airport. Valeria sat in the same chair, looking exhausted. Patterson was filling out paperwork. CPS is on their way, Patterson said. Unless you're taking responsibility? Brad crouched in front of Valeria. I'm going to get you out of here. We're going to do a DNA test. That's non-negotiable. But until we sort this out, you're not going into foster care. You're taking me home? Valeria's eyes widened. To a hotel. My wife doesn't know about this yet. I need to handle it carefully. Hoyt here. Brad gestured to his friend. Will stay with you. He's a lawyer, and will make sure you're safe. I can protect myself, Valeria said with false bravado. I'm sure you can, but let's not make things harder than they need to be. They checked Valeria into a Hampton Inn near the airport. Hoyt ordered room service while Brad made calls. First, to his office. He'd be out all day. Second, to Dr. Andreas Mueller, a geneticist he'd worked with on a research hospital project. I need a paternity test, Brad said. Fast, accurate, and completely confidential. Andreas agreed to meet them at his lab. 2 hours later, they were done. Cheek swabs from Brad and Valeria, rush processing for 48 hours. The girl believes the story, Andreas said privately. But those photos bother me. The lighting's off. The proportions are wrong. Someone with decent Photoshop skills could create them, but they'd need original photos of you from that time period. My wife has boxes of old photos, Brad said, from before digital. Andreas's expression turned grave. Brad, you need to prepare yourself. If your wife is part of this, then I'll handle it. Brad returned to the hotel. Valeria was watching TV, eating a burger. She looked so young, so lost. For a moment, Brad felt genuine sympathy. Whatever was happening, this girl was a victim. Tell me about your mother, he said, sitting across from her. Valeria's face softened. She was amazing. Tough, you know. Raised me alone, never complained. We didn't have much money, but she made sure I had everything. Art supplies, music lessons, books. She paused. She got sick last year. Breast cancer. She fought hard, but I'm sorry. She only told me about you a few months ago. Said she tried to find you after I was born, but you'd moved. Changed jobs. She didn't want to mess up your life. Valeria's voice hardened. Guess she was wrong about you wanting to know. Valeria, I genuinely never met your mother, but someone wanted you to think I did. Someone went to great effort to create this lie. Why would anyone do that? That's what I'm going to find out. Brad drove home at 5, exhausted and wired. Emilia was in the kitchen, preparing her famous osso buco. The house smelled like herbs and wine. She hummed as she cooked, a perfect picture of domestic bliss. You look terrible, she said, kissing his cheek. Rough day? You could say that. Brad poured himself a scotch. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Her knife stilled on the cutting board. Of course. Did you know a Shelley Mahoney? She worked at Barrett and Simmons when you did. Emilia's face went pale. Actually pale, her usual composure cracking. Why are you asking about her? So you did know her. We worked together briefly. Brad, what's this about? She died 3 weeks ago. But before that, she told her daughter that I'm the father. The girl showed up at DIA last night with a birth certificate and photos. Brad watched his wife carefully. Photos of me and Shelley together. Photos I never took. Emilia set down the knife. Her hands trembled. When she looked at Brad, tears filled her eyes. Oh God, he actually did it. Who did what? Giovanni. The name came out as a whisper. Giovanni Elliott. Chapter 3. The Serpent's Game. Brad's hand tightened on his glass. Who the hell is Giovanni Elliott? Emilia sank into a chair, her perfect composure shattered. He was Shelley's boyfriend. Back in 2007, 2008. I didn't know him well, but Shelley was obsessed with him. He was, she struggled for words. Charismatic, manipulative. He ran some kind of investment scheme, convinced half the office to give him money. When it collapsed, he disappeared. What does he have to do with me? Those Sacramento conferences, I did go to them. So did Shelley. And so did Giovanni. He was always there, networking, schmoozing. Brad, I swear I never cheated on you, but... Her voice broke. Giovanni and I had a thing. Just once. One terrible, drunken mistake during our rough patch. Brad felt like he'd been punched. You slept with him. It meant nothing. I was angry at you for working so much, drinking too much at a hotel bar, and he was there. It was one night, Brad. One night I've regretted for 17 years. Jesus Christ, Amelia. I got pregnant. The words hung in the air like smoke. I found out 2 weeks later. I was terrified. I didn't know if it was yours or his. I prayed it was yours, and when we lost the baby, she covered her face. I was devastated, but also relieved. Because if it had been Giovanni's, I would have had to tell you everything. Brad stood, pacing. His world was fracturing. You've been lying to me for 17 years. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you about one horrible mistake. That's the definition of lying, Em. Brad turned on her. But this still doesn't explain why a girl is claiming to be my daughter. Amelia wiped her tears. After Giovanni disappeared, Shelley got pregnant too. She insisted it was his. She tried to find him, but he'd vanished completely. Left the state, changed his name probably. Shelley raised the baby alone. She paused. That baby must be Valeria. So why does Valeria think I'm her father? Because Giovanni is a monster. Amelia's voice turned bitter. He must have found out Shelley was dying. Saw an opportunity. You're successful now, Brad. Your firm is worth millions. If he could convince Valeria you're her father, maybe extort money, sue for back child support, drag you through courts. She trailed off. He's evil enough to orchestrate this. Brad's mind spun. This wasn't just about money. This was revenge, manipulation, a long game played by someone patient and cruel. Giovanni Elliott had slept with Brad's wife, then 17 years later decided to destroy his life. Where's Giovanni now? I don't know. I haven't thought about him in years. Brad pulled out his phone, called Hoyt. I need everything on Giovanni Elliott. Work history, addresses, aliases, everything. He's the key. While Brad made calls, Amelia sat motionless, her perfect life crumbling. Part of Brad wanted to comfort her. Another part wanted to walk out the door. But he couldn't. Not yet. Because Giovanni Elliott had made this personal. By midnight, Hoyt called back. Found him. Living in Boulder under the name Gio Ellison. Runs a consulting firm that's basically an MLM scheme. Married, 2 kids, nice house in the suburbs. Clean record, but I dug deeper. 3 women in California filed restraining orders against him in 2010. All dropped when he paid them off. Address. Brad, what are you planning? Research. The next morning, Brad told Amelia he had site visits. Instead, he drove to Boulder with Hoyt. Giovanni's house was a modern McMansion, all glass and pretension. A silver BMW sat in the driveway. That's him, Hoyt said, showing Brad a photo on his phone. Giovanni Elliott was handsome in a slick way. Dark hair, expensive suit, teeth too white. He was loading golf clubs into his BMW. Brad got out of the car. Brad, Hoyt started. Stay here. Brad crossed the street, his heart cold and steady. Giovanni looked up, confused, then recognition dawned. He smiled, actually smiled. Bradley Harding. Heard you might come around. You're expecting me? Amelia always was a terrible liar. Figured she'd crack. Giovanni leaned against his car. Here's how this works. You pay me $2 million, I make Valeria disappear. She goes back to Sacramento, forgets she ever met you. Everyone wins. Except Valeria is your daughter, not mine. Giovanni laughed. Prove it. Oh wait, you can't. Because I have 17 years of documentation, photos, witnesses. You have what? Your word. He stepped closer. Your wife cheated on you with me. Your fancy reputation gets destroyed. Your clients find out. Your marriage ends. Or you write a check and this all goes away. Brad stood perfectly still. You photoshopped those pictures. Maybe. Or maybe you really did meet Shelley and forgot. Either way, doesn't matter. What matters is what people believe. Giovanni's smile widened. I'm good at making people believe things, Brad. Always have been. Why now? Why wait 17 years? Because Shelley was useful. She loved me, would do anything I asked. Raising Valeria kept her busy, kept her quiet about our little arrangement. But now she's dead, the kid needs money, and you. Giovanni gestured at Brad's car, his clothes. You're loaded. It's perfect timing. Shelley knew you were setting me up. Shelley knew what I told her to know. That you were a deadbeat dad. That I was trying to help her find you. That we get money together. Giovanni shrugged. She believed it because she wanted to. People are easy that way. Brad felt ice in his veins. This man had manipulated a dying woman, her daughter, and was trying to destroy Brad's life for money. And he was proud of it. 2 million, Giovanni repeated. You have 48 hours. After that, I go to the press. Successful architect abandons teenage daughter at airport. Can you imagine the headlines? Brad smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. I'll think about it. He walked back to Hoyt's car, got in, and said quietly, we're going to destroy him. Brad, not legally, not quickly. I'm going to tear apart everything he's built, everyone he's manipulated, every lie he's told. And when I'm done, Giovanni Elliott will wish he'd never heard my name. Hoyt stared at his friend. He'd known Brad for 25 years, had seen him angry, had seen him cold. But this was different. This was calculated fury. What do you need? A private investigator. The best one you know. Someone who can dig into Giovanni's life. Finances, relationships, crimes, everything. And I need it done quietly. Hoyt nodded. I know someone. Carmine Winters. Retired FBI. He's expensive. I don't care about cost. That afternoon, Brad met Carmine Winters at a coffee shop in Denver. Carmine was 60, gray-haired, with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Brad laid out everything. The airport call, Valeria, Giovanni's scheme, the ultimatum. You want revenge, Carmine said simply. I want justice. Same thing, different vocabulary. Carmine leaned back. Here's what I need. Access to your financial records, your wife's records, anything Giovanni might use against you. I'll find his vulnerabilities, his victims, his secrets. But Brad, this takes time. Weeks, maybe months. He gave me 48 hours. Then we stall him. Make him think you're considering the payment. String him along while I work. Carmine pulled out a contract. My fee is $50,000 plus expenses. You'll get weekly reports. Everything I find is admissible in court, but he paused. If you want to use it in other ways, Brad signed without hesitation. The DNA test results came back 36 hours later. Andreas called Brad personally. No genetic match. You're definitely not Valeria's father. I ran it twice to be sure. Brad felt vindicated, but not surprised. He drove to the hotel where Valeria was staying with Hoyt. She was doing homework, looking more relaxed than when they'd met. We got the DNA results, Brad said gently. I'm not your father. Valeria's face crumbled. But the photos, the birth certificate. Mom said, your mother was lied to by a man named Giovanni Elliott. Brad sat across from her. He's your real father. He used your mother, manipulated her into believing I was responsible, and now he's trying to extort money from me. That's impossible. Mom wouldn't. Your mother loved you. She did what she thought was right. But Giovanni is a con artist, Valeria. And you're his latest victim. The girl's hand shook. Where is he? Boulder. And we're going to make sure he faces consequences. But I need your help. Valeria looked up, tears streaming down her face, but something fierce sparked in her eyes. What do I have to do? Chapter 4. The Spider's Web. Brad spent the next week living a double life. At home, he and Amelia were coldly polite. She'd moved into the guest room, and they spoke only about logistics. At his office, he maintained his usual professional demeanor. But underneath, he was building his case against Giovanni Elliott. Carmine Winters proved worth every penny. Within 5 days, he'd uncovered a trail of destruction spanning 15 years. Giovanni's consulting firm was a pyramid scheme that had cost investors over $3 million. His marriage was a sham. His wife, Kelly Hudson, was actually his business partner, helping him identify and groom victims. The 2 kids were hers from a previous relationship, used as props to appear respectable. He's done this before, Carmine explained, spreading files across Brad's dining table. At least 4 times. Finds a vulnerable woman, gets her pregnant, or convinces her he's the answer to her problems, then disappears when things get complicated. Shelley Mahoney wasn't his first victim. She was just the most useful. Brad studied the files. Women's names, photos, statements. Allison Roberson in Phoenix. Giovanni had convinced her to invest her inheritance in a revolutionary tech startup. It vanished with her money. Frankie Trujillo in San Diego. He'd posed as a widower, proposed, then emptied her bank account before the wedding. Benita Rubio in Portland. Similar story, but she'd fought back, tried to press charges. Giovanni had threatened her until she dropped it. These women need to know he's being held accountable, Brad said. Some might testify. Others are too scared or ashamed. Carmine pulled out another file. But here's your smoking gun. Giovanni has been running paternity scams for 8 years. Finds women with kids, convinces them the father is someone wealthy, helps them build a case, then extorts money. He did it in Seattle 2 years ago. Took a tech CEO for $500,000 before the guy figured out the DNA tests were faked. How many others? At least 6 that I can prove. Probably more. Brad's jaw tightened. Can we get the FBI involved? Maybe. But fraud cases take years, and Giovanni's good at covering his tracks. Uses shell companies' false names, intimidation. Carmine leaned forward. You want him stopped? You need to think outside the law. I'm listening. Giovanni's power comes from secrets and fear. He knows people won't fight back because he'll expose their shame. But if you flip that, expose him first, make him the villain, you take away his leverage. Brad nodded slowly. You have a plan? I have a starting point. But you'll need help. Real help. Not just me and your lawyer friend. That evening, Brad drove to the hotel and found Valeria sketching in a notebook. Hoyt sat nearby, reading legal briefs. I need to ask you something difficult, Brad said to Valeria. Your mother kept journals, letters, anything that mentioned Giovanni? Valeria bit her lip. She had boxes. Everything's still at her friend's place in Sacramento. Mrs. Alba Matthews. She was Mom's landlord. Can you call her? Ask her to overnight the boxes. Why? Because your mother's story might help other women. Giovanni has hurt a lot of people, Valeria. If we can prove his pattern of manipulation, we can stop him. Valeria's eyes hardened. Good. I want him to suffer. The boxes arrived 3 days later. Brad, Hoyt, and Valeria spent an entire day sorting through Shelley Mahoney's life. Letters from Giovanni, sweet at first, then controlling. Photos of him with Shelley, always in expensive locations. Receipts for investments he'd convince her to make. In a journal, heartbreaking in its honesty. Giovanni says Brad will acknowledge Valeria when the time is right, Shelley had written in 2010. He's helping me build the case. He's been so supportive, even though it hurts him to know I was with Brad. Another entry from 2015. Giovanni says we need more evidence. He found old photos of Brad, helped me organize everything. He's my rock. And from 2020, Giovanni promises when Valeria is older, we'll finally get what we deserve. He's patient, unlike Brad was. He's a good man. Valeria read her mother's words with tears streaming down her face. She really believed it. She thought Brad abandoned us, and Giovanni was helping. He's a sociopath, Hoyt said quietly. He made himself the hero of your mother's story while setting up Brad as the villain. Brad touched Valeria's shoulder. Your mother loved you. That's what matters. Giovanni used that love, twisted it. But we're going to make sure he can't do it to anyone else. That night, Brad called a meeting. In addition to Hoyt and Carmine, he invited Andreas Mueller and 2 more people. Brett Ramos, a forensic accountant who'd worked on Brad's projects, and Emilia. His wife arrived last, looking exhausted. She'd lost weight in the past week, her usual elegance replaced with hollow eyes and nervous hands. Why am I here, she asked. Because you're part of this, Brad said. And because you have information we need. Brad laid out everything they discovered. Giovanni's pattern, his victims, his schemes. Emilia listened, growing paler with each revelation. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought it was just a stupid affair. I didn't know he was this. But you know him, Brad said. You spent time with him. You know how he thinks, how he operates. He was charming. Everyone liked him. He had this way of making you feel special, seen, and he was smart, always 10 steps ahead. Emilia met Brad's eyes. He probably planned our affair. Used me to get close to you, learn about your finances, your life. I wasn't a mistake to him. I was research. The room fell silent. Brad felt rage and pity warring in his chest. His marriage was probably over, but Emilia was a victim too. Just another pawn in Giovanni's game. Can you help us? He asked. How? Contact him. Tell him I'm considering paying. Set up a meeting. We need him to think he's winning. Emilia nodded. I can do that. Chapter 5. The Gathering Storm. Emilia made the call the next morning, with Carmine recording. Giovanni answered on the second ring, his voice smooth as oil. Emilia, what a surprise. Brad wants to meet. To discuss terms. Smart man. Where and when? He suggested the Riverfront Hotel, tomorrow at noon. The restaurant. Public place. He doesn't trust me. Giovanni laughed. Fine. Tell him to bring a cashier's check. $2 million, like we agreed. Emilia's voice stayed steady. He'll be there. After hanging up, she looked at Brad. He's confident. Too confident. Good. Confident people make mistakes. But Brad wasn't counting on Giovanni's mistakes. He was manufacturing them. Brett Ramos had been digging through Giovanni's finances with the precision of a surgeon. What he found was damning. 6 shell companies, 3 offshore accounts, money laundering through fake investments. Giovanni had been careful, but not perfect. Every transaction left a digital footprint, and Brett was following the trail like breadcrumbs. He's stealing from his own MLM, Brett explained, showing Brad spreadsheets. Skimming off the top, hiding it in these accounts. His investors are funding his lifestyle. If we report this to the FBI, they'll freeze everything. He'll be broke overnight. Not yet, Brad said. We need him desperate, not arrested. Andreas was working another angle, tracking down Giovanni's other children. Valeria might not be Brad's daughter, but she was definitely Giovanni's. A DNA test confirmed it, which meant Giovanni had legal obligations, child support, back payments, potentially inheritance rights. If Shelley's estate files against him, he's liable for 17 years of support, Andreas explained. That's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions with interest. Can we make that happen? Valeria's 18 in 8 months. If she sues for emancipation and back support before then, with Shelley's journals as evidence of Giovanni's abandonment. Andreas smiled grimly. He'd be crucified in family court. Brad looked at Valeria, who was listening intently. Are you willing to do that? Will it hurt him? Yes. Then I'm in. Hoyt was coordinating with Giovanni's other victims. Allison Roberson had initially been terrified to talk, but when she learned others had been hurt, her fear turned to fury. Frankie Trujillo wanted blood. Benita Rubio was ready to testify. Together, they represented over $4 million in fraud, not counting emotional damages. We file a class action lawsuit, Hoyt proposed. Civil suit, criminal charges pending. Even if Giovanni avoids jail, he'll be financially destroyed. What about Kelly? Brad asked. His wife. Carmine pulled out a file. Kelly Hudson, 52, former real estate agent. Met Giovanni 10 years ago, became his accomplice. She recruits the victims, plays the sympathetic friend, then helps Giovanni isolate them. He showed surveillance photos. Kelly at a coffee shop, laughing with a young woman. She's currently grooming someone new. Girl named Gail Chong, just inherited money from her parents' estate. Brad's hands clenched. We need to warn her. Already done. I approached her yesterday, showed her the evidence. She filed a police report this morning. Kelly doesn't know yet. Everything was falling into place. But Brad wanted more than Giovanni's financial destruction. He wanted him exposed, humiliated, stripped of everything he'd built his life on. The night before the meeting, Brad couldn't sleep. He stood in his home office, looking at blueprints of a community center he was designing, a project meant to help struggling families. Ironically, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake, Brad. Pay me and walk away. Push me, and I'll destroy everything you love. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Giovanni, threatening him. Brad texted back, see you tomorrow. At the Riverfront Hotel, Brad arrived early. The restaurant was upscale, full of business lunches and hush conversations. Hoyt sat at a nearby table, pretending to work on his laptop. Carmine was in a van outside, monitoring everything through hidden cameras and microphones Brad wore under his shirt. Giovanni arrived exactly on time, dressed in an expensive suit, exuding false charm. Kelly was with him, playing the role of innocent spouse. Brad. Giovanni extended his hand. Brad didn't take it. Let's get this over with. They sat. A server brought menus. Giovanni ordered the most expensive wine like he was celebrating. You made the right choice, Giovanni said. This way, nobody gets hurt. Valeria gets to disappear back to California. You keep your reputation. Emilia keeps her secrets. He smiled at Brad. Win-win. Except I'm not paying you anything. Giovanni's smile froze. Excuse me. I said no. In fact, I'm here to tell you that everything you've built is about to collapse. Brad leaned forward. I know about Allison, Frankie, Benita. I know about your MLM scam, your shell companies, your offshore accounts. I know about the Seattle tech CEO you extorted. And I know that Valeria is your daughter, not mine. Kelly's face went white. Giovanni's smile turned predatory. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. DNA test confirms Valeria is yours. Shelley's journals prove you manipulated her. Financial records prove fraud. Victim testimonies prove a pattern. And tomorrow morning, the FBI gets all of it. You're bluffing. Am I? Brad pulled out his phone, showed Giovanni a photo, a freeze frame for one of Shelley's journal entries. Your handwriting, your fingerprints all over this scheme. Giovanni stood abruptly. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do. You're a con artist, a deadbeat father, and a coward who preys on vulnerable people. But most importantly, you're predictable. You thought I'd be too scared or too proud to fight back. You were wrong. Kelly grabbed Giovanni's arm. We need to leave. But Giovanni was staring at Brad with pure hatred. I will ruin you. You'll try. But see, Giovanni, the difference between us is that I actually built something. You just steal and lie. And when people realize what you really are, they'll turn on you so fast you won't know what hit you. Security was already approaching. Hoyt had signaled them. Giovanni and Kelly were escorted out, Giovanni shouting threats the whole way. Brad sat back, exhaling. In his ear, Carmine's voice crackled. Got everything on tape. That's admission of the scheme, threats, everything we need. Good, Brad said quietly. Now we finish this. Chapter 6. The Architect's Blueprint. The next 72 hours were a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. First, Brett Ramos filed reports with the FBI and SEC, providing evidence of Giovanni's financial crimes. By Monday morning, federal agents raided Giovanni's office and home, seizing computers, documents, and freezing his accounts. The look on Giovanni's face when agents handcuffed him, captured by news cameras because Brad had tipped off the media, was priceless. Second, Hoyt filed the class action lawsuit on behalf of Giovanni's victims. 7 women, for $1 million in damages and a mountain of evidence. The lawsuit made headlines. Local consultant accused of multi-state fraud ring. Third, Valeria filed for emancipation and back child support, with Shelley's estate as plaintiff. The family court judge, seeing the evidence of abandonment and manipulation, was livid. She ordered Giovanni to pay 17 years of back support plus interest, a total of $800,000, when his accounts were already frozen. Fourth, and this was Brad's personal favorite, Andreas leaked DNA test results to Giovanni's family. Kelly's kids weren't his, but they'd been told they were. When they learned Giovanni wasn't their father, that their entire family was a lie, they turned on him with the fury of the betrayed. But Brad's masterstroke was the expose. Carmine had connected him with Tabitha Riddle, an investigative journalist from the Denver Post who specialized in white-collar crime. Brad gave her everything: victims, documents, recordings, Giovanni's entire history. She spent 2 weeks verifying and expanding the story. The article ran on the front page. The man who stole lives, Giovanni Elliott's decades-long con. It was devastating. Interviews with victims, photos of fake documents, financial breakdowns of his schemes. Giovanni was portrayed exactly as he was: a predator, a liar, a monster. Within days, Giovanni's world imploded. His consulting firm collapsed. His investors demanded refunds. His MLM downline sued him. His house was foreclosed. Kelly filed for divorce and cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. Even his own mother reached for comment, disowned him. I always knew Giovanni would hurt people. I just didn't know how many. Brad watched it all unfold with cold satisfaction. He wasn't happy. Happiness felt wrong when so many had been hurt. But he felt righteous fury being answered. Justice, even if imperfect, was being served. Valeria moved into a small apartment in Denver, paid for by a trust Brad established from Shelley's estate. She was attending therapy, processing her mother's lies and Giovanni's manipulation. But she was strong. She'd enrolled in online classes, was working in an art supply store, and slowly building a life. "I don't know how to thank you," she told Brad over coffee one afternoon. "You don't owe me anything, but you believed me. Even when you knew I was wrong, you helped me. You were a victim, just like your mother. Giovanni used you both. That's on him, not you." Valeria smiled sadly. "Mom would have liked you. The real you, not whatever Giovanni told her." Brad's marriage, however, was over. He and Amelia tried counseling, but the trust was gone. She'd lied for 17 years, and Brad couldn't look at her without seeing Giovanni. They agreed to divorce quietly. No drama, a fair split of assets, mutual respect for what they'd once had. "I'm sorry," Amelia said on the day she moved out. "For everything. For lying, for the affair, for bringing him into our lives. I know you are. Do you think someday you might forgive me?" Brad considered. "Maybe, but not today, and probably not for a long time." She nodded, tears streaming. "Goodbye, Brad." "Goodbye, Em." Hoyt helped Brad through the divorce paperwork, then took him out for drinks. "You did it," Hoyt said, raising his glass. "You took down a monster. We took him down. All of us. But you orchestrated it. You kept your head, played the long game, and won." "Doesn't feel like winning," Brad admitted. "My marriage is over. A woman is dead. Valeria lost her mother and learned her whole life was a lie. But Giovanni Elliott is finished. He's facing federal charges, bankruptcy, civil suits, and his reputation is destroyed. He'll spend the next decade fighting legal battles, and even if he avoids prison, he'll never hurt anyone again." Hoyt clinked his glass against Brad's. "That's a win, my friend. That's justice." Chapter 7. The Trap Springs. 3 months after Giovanni's arrest, Brad received a call from a blocked number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "You think you've won." Giovanni's voice was raw, desperate. "You haven't. I'll find a way out. I always do. The FBI has you on 12 counts of fraud. The SEC is investigating. You're facing civil suits totaling over $6 million. Your assets are frozen, your reputation destroyed. But way out, Giovanni. I know things about you, about Amelia, about your business. I'll destroy you. You already tried. It didn't work." Brad's voice was ice. "See, that's your problem. You think everyone operates like you, with secrets and lies and manipulation. But I'm clean, Giovanni. My business is legitimate. My reputation earned. You have nothing on me because there's nothing to find. Then I'll invent something. I'm good at that. Go ahead. Who'll believe you? The convicted con artist? The man who abandoned his daughter and extorted innocent people? You're poison, Giovanni. Nobody will touch you." There was a long silence. "Then you destroy my life." "No, you destroyed your life. I just made sure you face consequences." Brad paused. "Here's the difference between us. I build things, buildings, relationships, trust. You tear things down. And in the end, builders always win over destroyers. I'll see you in hell, Harding. Maybe, but you'll get there first." Brad hung up. His hands were steady, his conscience clear. The trial began in November. Brad attended every day, sitting in the gallery with Valeria, Hoyt, and several of Giovanni's victims. The prosecution was brutal. They had recordings, documents, testimonies from dozens of people. Giovanni's lawyer tried to paint him as a misunderstood entrepreneur, but it was laughable. The evidence was too damning. Kelly testified against him, describing how Giovanni had recruited her, taught her his methods, and promised they'd be rich together. "He said we were unstoppable," she told the jury, "that people were stupid and deserved to be conned. He had no empathy, no remorse. He enjoyed hurting people." When Valeria took the stand, Brad watched Giovanni closely. The man showed nothing, no shame, no recognition, no emotion. Even faced with his daughter's testimony about growing up without a father, about her mother's death, about the lies, Giovanni remained cold. "He's a psychopath," Andreas whispered to Brad. "Clinically. No empathy, no conscience." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Giovanni's face remained blank, but his hands clenched the table. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Brad made a brief statement. "Justice has been served. I hope this brings peace to Giovanni Elliott's many victims and prevents him from hurting anyone else. That's all I have to say." Tabitha Riddle caught up with him. "Brad, can I ask, what's next for you?" "Back to work. Back to building. That's what I do." "And Valeria?" Brad glanced at the girl, who was talking with victim advocates. "She's finding her way. She's strong. She'll be fine. One more question. Do you regret any of it? The investigation, the exposure, the way you went after Giovanni?" Brad considered. "No. He hurt people for decades with no consequences. Someone had to stop him. I'm just glad I could help." That night, Brad sat in his empty house. Too big now, without Amelia, too quiet. But he didn't feel alone. He felt lighter, like he'd been carrying a weight and finally set it down. His phone buzzed. A text from Valeria. "Thank you for everything. For believing in me, for fighting for Mom, for showing me what integrity looks like. You're not my dad, but you're the best father figure I've ever had." Brad smiled. Maybe he hadn't lost everything. Maybe he gained something too. Chapter 8. Ashes and Aftermath. Sentencing day arrived cold and gray. The courtroom was packed. Victims, journalists, curious onlookers. Giovanni stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. His charm completely evaporated. He looked small, defeated, ordinary. Judge Carol Myers was known for harsh sentences, especially in fraud cases. She'd read every victim's statement, every piece of evidence, and her expression was granite. "Mr. Elliott," she began, "I have presided over many fraud cases in my 30 years on the bench. But rarely have I seen such calculated cruelty, such systematic destruction of trust and lives. You didn't just steal money. You stole hope, dignity, and years from your victims." Giovanni's lawyer tried to interject. The judge cut him off. "You manipulated a dying woman into believing a lie, used her daughter as a pawn, and attempted to extort millions from an innocent man. You abandoned your own child and felt no remorse. You are, quite simply, a danger to society." She sentenced him to 23 years in federal prison on the fraud charges, plus restitution of $6 million. The civil suits were separate. Those would bankrupt him for life. Giovanni showed no reaction. He was led away in handcuffs, and Brad felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just relief that it was over. Kelly received 5 years probation for her cooperation. She'd lost everything too: her home, her savings, her credibility. She stood outside the courthouse, crying, begging for forgiveness from the victims she'd helped target. Most walked past her. A few stopped to spit words of disgust. Brad didn't stop. He had nothing to say to her. The civil suits settled over the next 6 months. Giovanni's assets, what little remained, were liquidated and distributed to victims. It wouldn't cover their losses, but it was something. Brett Ramos helped several victims recover funds from shell companies and offshore accounts. Every penny found was a small victory. Brad's firm thrived. The publicity around the case had been intense, but it painted him as a victim who'd fought back intelligently and ethically. New clients sought him out, impressed by his integrity. He hired 3 new architects, expanded into commercial projects, and donated to organizations helping fraud victims. He also established the Shelley Mahoney Foundation, funded with money from his divorce settlement. It provided legal aid and financial counseling to women targeted by con artists. Valeria helped run it, turning her pain into purpose. Amelia moved to Seattle, started a new design firm, and sent Brad occasional emails. Always professional, sometimes wistful. He responded politely but distantly. Their marriage was truly over, But the anger had faded to sadness, then to acceptance. She'd been a victim too, in her way. Just one who'd made terrible choices. Brad started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinners and movies and conversations. It felt strange at first, like learning to walk again. But gradually, he remembered who he was outside of his marriage. A man who loved architecture, jazz music, hiking, good whiskey, and honest conversation. A man who'd been tested and emerged stronger. Hoyt remained his closest friend, always ready with legal advice or a beer. Andreas became a golf partner. Carmine Winters retired fully but sent Brad a Christmas card. You were a good client. Honest, smart, and you didn't flinch. Those are rare qualities. If you ever need me again, call. Brad hoped he'd never need to call. One evening, 6 months after the sentencing, Brad was working late at his office when Valeria knocked on his door. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it blue, and looked more confident than the terrified girl at the airport. Hey, she said. Got a minute? Always. She sat across from his desk, the same way countless clients had. But this felt different, more personal. I'm leaving Denver, she announced. Got accepted to art school in New York. Full scholarship. Brad smiled genuinely. That's incredible, Valeria. Congratulations. I wouldn't have applied without you. You show me that I don't have to be defined by what happened, that I can build my own life, my own identity. She paused. I wanted to say thank you, not just for stopping Giovanni, but for treating me like a person, for not giving up on me even when I was part of the lie. You were never part of the lie. You were a victim of it. Still, you didn't have to help me. You could have walked away, let CPS handle it, focused on your own life. But you didn't. You fought for me and for Mom, even though you owed us nothing. Valeria's voice cracked. That's what a real father would do. Brad came around the desk, hugged her. Your mother loved you. Despite everything Giovanni did, despite the lies, she wanted the best for you. Honor her by living a good life, Valeria. By being honest, kind, and strong. That's the best revenge against Giovanni. Showing him that you rose above his poison. I will. Valeria wiped her eyes. Will you stay in touch? Of course. Send me your address in New York. I'll visit, take you to dinner, bore you with architecture talk. She laughed. I'd like that. They talked for another hour. About her plans, her dreams, the boy she was seeing who treated her well. Brad listened, offered advice when asked, and felt something paternal and proud. He wasn't her father, would never be. But he'd helped save her, and that counted for something. Chapter 9, Building Again. 2 years after that phone call from the airport, Brad stood in front of the Shelley Mahoney Community Center, a 3-story building with glass walls, green spaces, and rooms dedicated to supporting families in crisis. It had been his passion project, designed personally and funded partly by his firm. Valeria cut the ribbon, her blue hair now purple, her smile radiant. She'd graduated art school early, was already selling pieces in New York galleries, and had become an advocate for fraud victims. She gave a speech about her mother, about truth, about resilience. My mom made mistakes, Valeria said to the crowd. She trusted the wrong person, believed lies that seemed like truth. But she loved me, and she did her best. This center honors her memory and helps other families avoid the traps she fell into. It's proof that from darkness, we can build light. Brad watched from the crowd, Hoyt beside him. His friend nudged him. You did good, man. We all did. Yeah, but you're the architect. Literally and figuratively. Hoyt gestured at the building. You built this. After everything, the betrayal, the divorce, the fight, you built something beautiful. Brad smiled. That's what architects do. After the ceremony, Brad walked through the center. Counseling rooms, legal aid offices, financial planning spaces, even a daycare for single parents. Every detail had been carefully considered. This was his legacy, more than any commercial building or fancy house. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Brad Harding. Mr. Harding, this is Warden Mills from FCI Englewood. Giovanni Elliott has requested to speak with you. It would be a phone call, supervised, entirely voluntary on your part. Brad's first instinct was to refuse. Then he thought about it. 2 years. He'd moved on, built a new life, found peace. Giovanni was rotting in prison forgotten by everyone he'd hurt. I'll take the call. 2 days later, Brad sat in his office. Phone on speaker, Hoyt listening beside him. Brad. Giovanni's voice was different. Hollow-aged. Prison had not been kind. Giovanni. I hear you built a community center. Named it after Shelley. I did. That's good. She deserved better than me. Brad said nothing. I'm not calling to apologize. I can't undo what I did. But I wanted you to know. Giovanni paused. You won. Completely. I have nothing. No money. No respect. No future. And you were right. I destroyed my own life. You just forced me to face it. Why are you telling me this? Because in 21 years, I'll get out. I'll be 70. Broken, old, forgotten. And you'll still be out there, building things, living well. I wanted you to know that I understand that now. That builders win. That I wasted my life tearing down what I should have been creating. Brad leaned forward. Giovanni, I don't forgive you. The women you hurt, the families you destroyed, that can't be forgiven. But I hope you spend these years understanding why you failed. Not just because you got caught, but because cruelty and lies always collapse eventually. They have no foundation. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're still playing the victim. You're not sorry you hurt people. You're sorry you lost. Silence. Then, quietly, you're right. I'm a monster. I always was. Then use these years to figure out why. And maybe, just maybe, when you get out, you'll be less of one. Brad hung up. He didn't feel satisfaction or pity. He felt closure. Hoyt exhaled. That was intense. It needed to be. Think he'll change. No. Men like Giovanni don't change. They just run out of victims. Brad stood, looked out his office window at Denver skyline. But that's not my problem anymore. He's done, and I have buildings to design. That evening, Brad had dinner with a woman named Ray Harper, a landscape architect he'd met at a conference. She was smart, funny, had her own successful business, and made Brad laugh in ways he'd forgotten he could. They weren't serious yet, but they were building towards something. Maybe a future, maybe just a good friendship. Either way, it felt right. As he drove home that night, Brad thought about the past 2 years. The betrayal, the fight, the victory, the reconstruction. He'd lost a marriage, but gained clarity. He'd faced a monster and won. He'd help a girl find herself and build a center that would help hundreds more. He wasn't the same man who'd answered that airport call. He was harder in some ways, more careful about trust. But he was also more confident, more purposeful, more himself. The phone rang. Valeria, calling from New York. Hey, her voice was excited. I just sold a piece to a major collector. It's called Building from Ashes. It's about Mom, about you, about survival. That's amazing, Valeria. I want you to have the first print. I'm shipping it tomorrow. I'd be honored. Brad, yeah. Thank you. For everything. For being the man Giovanni pretended to be. For showing me that good people exist and they win. Brad smiled. Good people don't always win, Valeria. But we keep building anyway. That's what makes us good. After they hung up, Brad sat in his car for a moment, looking at his house. Smaller now, simpler. Through the window, he could see his drafting table, covered in sketches for a new project. A library this time for underprivileged kids. He'd lost and gained, been broken and rebuilt. But he was still standing, still creating, still moving forward. Giovanni Elliott was in prison, his empire ashes, his name synonymous with fraud and cruelty. Kelly Hudson was working a minimum wage job in Kansas, rebuilding from nothing. Amelia was in Seattle, living quietly with her regrets. And Brad? Brad was free. He got out of the car, walked into his house, poured a scotch, and started sketching. The library would have big windows, he decided. Lots of light. Children needed light to learn, to grow, to dream. Outside, Denver sparkled under a clear night sky. The mountains stood eternal in the distance. And in a small office overlooking the city, an architect built his next masterpiece. Not just of steel and glass, but of hope and resilience and the unshakable belief that good men, when tested, can rise higher than their enemies ever fall. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.